There's a lot of conflicting information coming out regarding LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. There have been rumors that both sides would like a trade, but agent Rich Paul has said that James never requested one. It also doesn't seem like the Lakers are eager to keep paying James big money after this season. The future Hall of Famer is already 40 years old, so he could retire any season, but it sounds like he's got at least another 2 or 3 years left in the tank. James already has the NBA's scoring to go along with a litany of other records. The only other real milestone that would help his legacy is winning more championships. The problem is that it doesn't seem he believes the Lakers can compete for a championship this season. James' former teammate on the Miami Heat, Udonis Haslem, seems to agree with that notion and believes that the superstar needs to move on. I don't give a damn who they bring to LA. That is not a championship roster right now with the LA Lakers, Haslem said on ESPN's NBA Today. If LeBron James wants to put himself in the championship situation, it has to be another opportunity out there that he needs to look for. Haslem hints at Heat fit. James is the oldest player in the NBA, but he was still named All-NBA third team for the third season in a row. He's no longer the best player in the league, but there's a real argument he's still in the top 10. One team that knows his greatness well is the Heat. He won 2 championships with the team in just 4 seasons. Haslem seemed to hint that Miami might be a better fit for him right now. I do know a place where he is welcomed, and he will always be welcomed, Haslem added. Just to put that out there. The problem with Haslem's idea is that the Heat are far worse off than the Lakers right now. They don't have a ton of talent on the roster. They're a team that should be looking to rebuild rather than trying to make a run with a player like James. Plus, if they were to trade for the star forward, they'd likely have to give up all-star center Bam Adebayo, which would make the roster around James even weaker. Lakers questioned for wanting to move on from James. James' tenure with the Lakers hasn't been perfect, but he has consistently played well and helped lead the team to a championship. He continues to play at a high level, but Los Angeles doesn't seem keen on keeping him around. The Lakers could be championship contenders this season with James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves on the roster. Fox Sports' Nick Wright can't understand why Los Angeles would consider moving on from James right now. I don't know why the Lakers seem to be in a rush to get out of the LeBron James business, Wright said on First Things First. I don't expect the Lakers to find a player better than LeBron James to replace LeBron James this year or next year. The Miami Heat just made a trade for Norman Powell that upped their ceiling in 2025 to 26, potentially as high as an actual playoff team, top 6 seed, that doesn't have to fight its way into the last 2 spots in the East via the NBA's play-in tournament. That Miami got Powell for very little in return isn't the feather in the franchise's proverbial cap that some have made it out to be. Multiple analysts at ESPN and The Ringer have pointed out correctly that the Los Angeles Clippers made the move for 2 reasons. First, they ran into a wall in contract negotiations with Powell, who is an expiring contract next season, and wanted something in return rather than losing him for nothing. The Clippers got that in 27-year-old forward John Collins, most recently of the Utah Jazz, via the 3-team deal. He adds some offense and athleticism to their front line, 19 points and 8.2 rebounds per night last season. Second, Los Angeles is the clear frontrunner for shooting guard Bradley Beal once the Phoenix Suns waive him and stretch his contract, which could happen any day now. The Clippers will be able to replace Powell with Beal in what is essentially a wash, give or take a few points per game, via the swap of score-first guards. One development that could prove the Heat's signature move of the last few summers if they could maneuver it, however, would be to flip Powell and other solid players for a bona fide superstar who could help put Miami back in true NBA Finals contention in an injury-battered Eastern Conference. Kevin Durant, a longtime target in South Florida, is no longer on the market. However, former Heat superstar and current Los Angeles Lakers forward LeBron James just might be. Heat can use Norman Powell as key piece of trade for LeBron James. Zach Lowe on Monday, July 14th, floated a trade idea between the Lakers and Heat built around some of the younger talent in Miami. There's a Heat reunion trade that kind of actually makes some sense for both sides, Lowe said. The Heat have salary attached to decent players. They have a young rim-running center that Luka Doncic can grow with in Kel'el Ware. And they're a place where LeBron has been and knows, and there's a certain romanticism to that. Tyler, Herro plus LeBron plus Bam Adebayo. I'm not closing any doors. Lowe added the caveat that he believes James will end up back with the Lakers next season after exercising the $52.6 million player option on his contract a couple of weeks ago. And that is the most logical outcome given how complicated any trade would be, though there is a world where it makes sense for all three parties involved. Heat trade package for LeBron James can make sense for Lakers. James has a no-trade clause, so he would have to agree to the deal. But James sent out agent Rich Paul to comment publicly about his desire to win immediately, which most league insiders read as a direct message to the Lakers that the four-time MVP expects them to make moves toward immediate title contention. Given that, James may be open to returning to a desirable city where he won 2 championships and played in 4 finals, particularly if Adebayo and Herro remain on the roster. Los Angeles could get out of the James business a year early, which is a mixed bag. He was a second-team All-NBA player in his age 40 campaign and may still give the team the best chance to win. However, if the Lakers believe their odds will remain thin in the West even if James stays, then flipping him for wear and a package of talent they can move on from next summer in the name of hunting bigger game makes perfect sense. LA has apparently cooled on the idea of Andrew Wiggins, but he does provide size, perimeter defense, rebounding, and some shooting at the forward position. Wiggins has 2 years remaining on his current contract, but he would enter 2026 to 27 with a $30.2 million expiring contract that the Lakers could use in a trade. Add Powell, who averaged 21.8 points per game last season, and his $20.5 million expiring contract to the $28.2 million Wiggins will make next season, and the Heat are close to James' 2025-26 salary. Where the true prize in the deal, and the one player the Lakers would likely want to keep long-term, puts the salary total just over $53.1 million, roughly $500,000 more than what James will earn next season. LeBron James could prove short-term and long-term play for Heat. The Heat would probably prefer to keep Ware as a long-term asset and could re-sign Powell, who will play next season at 32 years old, to a multi-year contract extension. But those two players aren't likely to push Miami into another NBA Finals anytime soon, if ever, even as teammates of Adebayo and Herro. James, however, would go a lot further in that regard for Miami next season. He could potentially come back to the NBA for another year or two beyond the 2025-26 campaign, regardless of location, per The Athletic's Dan Woik, who joined the Zach Lowe Show on Monday. Miami has some other promising young talent in the form of Davion Mitchell, Jamie Jaquez Jr., and rookie Kasparas Giacchionis, all of whom are playing on affordable deals. If the Heat were to trade for James, and then he was to return beyond next season at a considerably reduced annual average salary, the franchise would have some flexibility to go out and recruit in free agency, not to mention more juice via James' presence on the roster and the championship equity he would bring to Miami, even in his early 40s. The Los Angeles Lakers' long-term relationship with LeBron James appears to be nearing the end of its rope as the superstar heads into his age 41 season in 2025-26, which is also his final contract year with the NBA's signature franchise. Decision-makers in LA have already made clear, in both word and action, their intention to preserve the ultimate flexibility in the summers of 2026 and 2027 to add superstar talent alongside Luka Doncic, a 26-year-old superstar himself who gives the Lakers legitimate hope of competing with the juggernaut Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference over the next half-decade. That hope really only exists for a few teams in the West, one of which is the recently retooled Denver Nuggets, due to the presence of 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic on their roster. But Jokic and Doncic hail from the same region of the globe and are already close friends, which some analysts believe has given the leadership in LA some lofty ideas for the medium-term future. In an ideal world for the Lakers, the organization would pair the two for the end of Jokic's prime during the heart of Doncic's prime. The possibility to do so theoretically exists 2 years from now. Mark Deeks of Heavy contended on Tuesday, July 15th, that the Lakers' entire team-building strategy this offseason is bent toward making a free agency play for Jokic in the summer of 2027, after he declined a contract extension with the Nuggets earlier this month. Jokic and Doncic's friendship is well established, and allusions to the idea of them one day pairing up are starting to seep through. When viewed through that lens, everything about the Los Angeles Lakers' 2025 offseason movement, or lack of it, starts to make more sense, Deeks wrote. It is not for nothing that Denver Nuggets president Josh Kroenke recently gave some voice of his own to the idea that, one day, Jokic might leave the team. Nor is it for nothing that Jokic has declined the Nuggets' offer of a contract extension. Jokic may have declined the extension in Denver simply as a financial matter, as can earn considerably more on a longer-term deal next summer. That is the same reason that Doncic may decide to ink a 3-year extension with LA in August rather than a 4-year deal, if he signs a new contract at all, as doing so will allow him to sign a much more lucrative agreement with 10 years of NBA service come the summer of 2028. However, Jokic's motivations could be more layered than simply adding an extra year and another $80 million or so in security on top of the $276 million contract on which he's currently playing. The megastar, known for his blunt brand of honesty on his future and the present state of the Nuggets organization at any given time, can use the uncertainty his recent decision has wrought to pressure Denver's front office into spending more aggressively toward the creation of another championship roster in the immediate. Jokic may, of course, still sign that extension next summer, rendering any positioning for him moot, Deeks continued. But the Lakers have heard the same story about Luka and Joker that everyone else has, and they are planning accordingly.